Thursday marks 20 years since Princess Diana was killed in a car crash inside a Paris tunnel.
A long-buried truth, hidden for decades, has finally shaken the monarchy's foundation. In a heart-wrenching moment, King Charles sat Prince William down and revealed a secret no heir should ever face: the identity of his real mother. The room was thick with tension, history, and betrayal as William's tears fell, overwhelmed by a revelation that changes everything. This is no ordinary family drama. It's a secret so powerful it rewrites the royal bloodline and shakes the very core of the crown. So, what exactly did Charles reveal? Let's uncover the truth. The sentence that shattered Prince William's world. It was a sentence never meant to be seen, buried deep within the archives of the crown, wrapped in silence and forgotten by time. But now, after nearly 40 years, that very sentence has returned like a ghost, haunting the walls of Buckingham Palace and leaving behind a trail of royal shock. The letter, handwritten by King Charles himself in the mid-1980s, has come to light, and with it, a truth so delicate, so disruptive, that it has sent tremors through the monarchy's most protected foundations. The line that stands out reads simply, but cuts deeply. He will never be hers. Not truly, because he is not hers to begin with. 7 words that could rewrite the story the public has always believed about Prince William, the heir to the throne, the golden boy of the House of Windsor, and the image of royal duty and control. Historians have carefully examined the paper, the ink, and even the style of handwriting, dating the letter to a period between late 1984 and early 1986. A time when Prince William was just a toddler. It was an era shadowed by rising tensions in Charles and Diana's marriage. While the world saw glamour, royal tours, and balcony waves behind the scenes, cracks had already begun to show.
This month marks the 20th anniversary of the death of Princess Diana. She was just 20 years old when she married Prince Charles.
According to insiders, this letter wasn't a rant or a loose thought scribbled in emotion. It was a controlled message, penned during a time of personal turmoil and growing public scrutiny. Sources believe the letter was addressed to a spiritual advisor, someone within the Church of England, who had earned Charles's deepest trust. Others whisper it may have been intended for a close family ally, perhaps someone who had stood beside Charles since his youth. Whoever the recipient was, they received a message too explosive for public knowledge. The sentence itself raises an avalanche of questions, especially the identity of she. Who is this woman Charles claims Prince William would never truly belong to? Most would assume he meant Princess Diana, but royal historians aren't convinced. They point out that the tone of the letter doesn't reflect animosity toward Diana, but instead suggests a kind of mournful restraint, as if Charles was speaking about something, or someone, entirely different. Could the she in question have been a surrogate, a secret figure whose existence was erased from royal records? Or could this be a veiled confession, pointing to a woman outside the known royal narrative altogether? Someone who may have carried William into the world, while Diana stood in as the symbolic mother for the public? Even more suspicious is the timing. This wasn't written during the chaos of the 90s when scandal rocked the palace and headlines exploded with royal drama. No, this letter was written before the storm, in the mid-80s, when everything still appeared calm. Why then? Why was Charles already carrying this secret? A former palace aide has described the letter as emotionally deliberate, suggesting it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment confession, but something weighed and calculated. That single sentence has led historians to reevaluate timelines, question family roles, and dig deeper into what the public was never told. And as the world watches Prince William, stoic, composed, trained to lead, it's this discovery that may finally expose the fragility behind the face of the future king. That's when Prince William's perfect image begins to crack. Was a royal secret hiding in plain sight? Stay with us as we take you through the royal dark secret. A royal secret hidden in plain sight. For years, whispers clung to the walls of royal halls, rumors dismissed as nonsense, idle speculation, unfit for a crown so carefully guarded. Yet now, with the surfacing of King Charles's chilling handwritten words, he will never be hers, not truly, because he is not hers to begin with. Those whispers have grown louder, sharper, and impossible to ignore. The theory once thought too wild to entertain is now forcing a second look. But this time, it's not about Prince Harry. This time, the focus turns to Prince William, and the story takes a darker turn. In the early 1980s, long before the public saw cracks in Charles and Diana's fairy tale, something unusual was already unfolding. Diana was admitted to the hospital several times under vague medical pretexts. At the time, the explanation was stress or private health issues. But behind palace walls, insiders tell a different story. Quiet discussions of fertility troubles, hushed meetings between doctors, aides, and royal advisors. If the marriage was already strained, as many palace staff now suggest, and the pressure to produce a healthy heir had intensified, so would the royal machine have stepped in? The crown had a motive, it had influence, it had everything, except time. If the marriage between Charles and Diana was more arrangement than romance, then a public heir was more than a desire. It was a requirement. And if natural conception posed a challenge, would the palace dare consider another route? That's when the theory gains ground. What if a surrogate was used, not for Harry, but for William? What if Diana was asked not to give birth, but to simply raise a child chosen for the future of the monarchy? In that light, Charles' words hit harder, not hers to begin with. Suddenly, this isn't about failed love. It's about something far deeper, something buried so thoroughly that even William may not know. And yet signs have always lingered in plain sight. Diana's love for William was undeniable, fierce, unconditional, sometimes overly protective. But now, royal experts are asking a heartbreaking question. Was her love for William the protective love of a mother, or of a woman guarding a child she was asked to claim as her own? In handwritten notes and interviews, Diana often expressed fears that went beyond tabloid pressure. In one letter, she wrote, "My worry for William never leaves me. I feel like he's mine, but still, not fully." At the time, the sentiment felt poetic, but now, historians see something different: conflicted emotion, quiet grief, and perhaps a woman carrying a truth too heavy to speak aloud. A former nanny once shared that Diana never let William out of her sight, not even during long nights when the palace was quiet. "It was like she was holding on to him for dear life," the woman said. "She feared something, but we never knew what." Was Diana shielding William from paparazzi and public scrutiny, or from a truth she was forced to live with? And if this was true, if William was not born to Diana but chosen for her to raise, what does that say about the legacy we thought we understood? What does that say about the woman we thought we knew? Because if Diana carried this secret to her grave, then what lies beneath it may change everything we thought we knew about the next king. And what they never told us about Prince William's birth, could it rewrite everything we believed about Diana and the crown? Keep watching as the story gets wilder. The DNA that shook the future king. Prince William was born on June 21, 1982, in the full spotlight of royal attention.
Good morning, sir. Can you tell us how your
Good
daughter
morning.
is? How is she?
Very well indeed, thank you. Looks beautiful. Looks to be a lovely baby, too.
To the public, Charles and Diana were still the smiling couple, fulfilling their roles as modern parents under a watchful world eye. But behind those picture-perfect moments, the royal fairy tale had already begun to fray. And now, decades later, royal historians are starting to re-examine that timeline, not with romance in mind, but with suspicion. By early 1982, palace insiders began noticing small but strange inconsistencies. There was a quiet hospital visit Diana made just months before William's birth, completely unreported, undocumented by the press. No official reason was given. Palace aides simply said she was not feeling well, but offered no detail. And in the royal world, when silence replaces clarity, something is often hidden. The letter, reportedly written in the mid-1980s but clearly referring to events just before or during William's birth, now raises more questions than it answers. If Diana wasn't unwell, Could it have been something else? Was a decision made in secrecy? One the public was never meant to discover? That's when a new layer of the story begins to unfold. Some royal researchers suggest it's not the father being questioned, it's the mother. Not because Diana wasn't present, loving, or nurturing, but because she may not have been biologically connected at all. The theory sounds extreme, but what if the truth was never meant to be extreme, just buried? The details surrounding William's birth were always tightly managed. But now, royal archives from 1981 to 1983 are reportedly being quietly re-reviewed. A former royal clerk recently hinted that certain documents may have been backdated, even replaced altogether. Protocol was always followed, the clerk said, unless protocol was quietly rewritten. And that's exactly the kind of clue that has given rise to renewed whispers about a royal surrogate, carefully chosen, quietly handled, and never publicly acknowledged. DNA has now become the shadow hanging over it all. For years, rumors have circulated that Prince William, in his early adulthood, began to ask private questions about his bloodline, his origins, the silences that never sat right. Some sources claim a discreet test may have been conducted around 2001, far from royal laboratories, in a location never disclosed. The results, according to one former royal security officer, were delivered in a sealed envelope to Clarence House. What happened after that is anyone's guess. Did Charles open it? Did William ever see the contents? Or was it hidden away like everything else, meant to protect not just the monarchy, but William's own sense of identity? If the results prove that Charles is the father, but Diana is not the mother, then every photograph, every memory, and every family tradition takes on a new meaning. Not a lie, but a carefully managed version of the truth. And perhaps that's why the letter was written at all, not to reveal, but to wrestle with guilt. A quiet confession in ink from a father who may have carried the weight of that truth for far too long. So how did Charles hide a truth so heavy it haunted him for decades? Stay tuned. This changes everything. The secret. Charles could never say aloud. King Charles has long worn the image of calm, stoic in public, measured in words, never one to let emotions spill past the royal script. But now, that image is beginning to crack. A private letter, dated sometime in the mid-1980s, has surfaced, quiet in tone, devastating in meaning. A single line from that letter may be the closest we've ever come to hearing Charles speak without filters or formality. He will never be hers, not truly, because he is not hers to begin with. At first glance, it sounds cold, but read it again, not with suspicion, but with sorrow. What if it wasn't meant to wound, but to confess? What if it was Charles, behind palace doors, trying to put into words a truth too heavy to share out loud? This time, the mystery doesn't revolve around Prince Harry. It circles Prince William, the heir, the future king, the one who has always seemed so perfectly shaped for duty. But even perfection can be a mask. Some now believe that behind Charles's controlled relationship with William lies a deeper truth, one that the king may have been carrying since the day William was born in June 1982. Royal observers have often noted that Charles's connection with William felt formal, almost scripted. While the world saw affectionate gestures and official portraits, insiders behind palace walls whispered of emotional gaps. One former palace staffer said, Charles seemed present but guarded, like he was performing the role of a father, not fully living it. Could that distance have come not from a lack of love, but from confusion, perhaps even guilt? If Charles knew or suspected that Diana wasn't biologically connected to William, that she may have been asked to raise him as her own, then every hug, every moment shared in public would carry a shadow. That single sentence from his letter wouldn't be an attack, it would be grief, written in ink, a father's heartbreak disguised in royal language. And then there's William himself. From an early age, he stood out, not just because of his position, but because of something less visible. Teachers described him as serious beyond his years. Staff noted how often he asked questions about duty, about roles, and about why things had to be the way they were. A former nanny remembered, William was always watching, always trying to understand something the rest of us couldn't see. As he grew older, the questions only grew deeper. Where Harry acted out and resisted, William withdrew, silent, composed, and always searching for something that perhaps no one around him dared to explain. Those closest to him say he became even more introspective after Diana's death in 1997. Her loss wasn't just the death of a mother. It may have been the final lock on a door he never had the key to. If she wasn't his biological mother and he somehow sensed that in his core, then the pain he carried wasn't just grief, it was disorientation, a lifetime of knowing something didn't quite fit and having no words for why. And now, with this letter in the open and Buckingham Palace bracing for impact, the silence around William's past is beginning to feel less like tradition and more like fear. And did Prince William's silence hide fear, not duty? The truth may be unraveling. Stay tuned, you won't want to miss this. The Crown's silent storm. The palace walls have never felt so fragile. With the letter exposed and timelines crumbling under scrutiny, silence has become Buckingham Palace's only strategy. But this silence isn't calm, it's anxious. Tense meetings now replace family dinners. Legal teams work around the clock. Sources confirm that a private crisis unit, previously activated during the fallout from Meghan and Harry's Oprah interview, has been quietly reassembled. Their new mission? Contain the leak, suppress the truth, and protect the legacy of the Crown at all costs. But this isn't just about a single letter anymore. It's about what else might exist. Letters, notes, or personal admissions, written not just by King Charles, but possibly addressed to Princess Diana or to Prince William himself. And now, a quiet fear is growing behind those gilded palace doors, because if even one more document slips into the public's hands, it could do more than stir scandal. It could unravel everything: titles, line of succession, and public trust. The monarchy is facing a reckoning it hasn't prepared for. Legal advisors are reportedly reviewing the limits of the Official Secrets Act, searching for a way to bury the past legally. But outside of the UK, journalists and foreign media aren't playing by the same rules. The truth is leaking, slowly, steadily, and with every whisper, the palace's grip weakens. But at the center of it all, standing unshaken in public yet torn in private, is Prince William, the future king, the steady hand of the firm, the one person who now finds himself caught between preserving tradition and confronting the possibility that his entire story might have been shaped by silence. And the question echoing louder than ever is this: did William know? Insiders suggest he did. That when he came of age, perhaps around 2000, shortly after his 18th birthday, Charles may have sat him down, in private, away from royal aides, and shared more than just advice on duty. One source described it as a heavy talk, the kind that changes a young man. Those close to William noticed a shift. He became more guarded, more careful with his words, less accessible emotionally, and more determined to follow protocol, even when it hurts. Was that the moment the truth was passed down? For a man like William, raised in the spotlight, taught to protect the institution before himself, the pressure would have been unbearable. Every decision, every handshake, every camera flash was measured. And if he had to choose between defending his brother's right to know and preserving the image of the monarchy he was born to uphold, it seems the choice was made long ago. But that silence now has a cost.
William's smile set the tone. It was going to be a great wedding as well.
While William maintains his composure at royal engagements, shaking hands, cutting ribbons, and delivering speeches, questions are piling up. His silence is no longer seen as a strength. It's beginning to look like complicity. If he knew the truth behind his own origins or those of his family and remained silent, not just to the world, but to Harry, then the betrayal isn't just royal, it's personal. And in Montecito, California, where Prince Harry now resides with Meghan, the reaction couldn't be more different. There is no silence. There are no rehearsed smiles, only a growing demand for answers. Sources close to the Sussexes say Meghan is pushing harder than ever for Harry to pursue the full truth, no matter what stands in the way. And what if Meghan's push for truth uncovers a secret even William can't escape? Stay glued. The Queen, the Gatekeeper, and the truth about William. As the storm around Prince William quietly deepens, one name lingers behind the curtain:
If the Queen has only worn St. Edward's gold crown once.
Queen Elizabeth II. For more than 7 decades, she was the final word in royal matters, the guardian of tradition, and the keeper of secrets no one dared to voice aloud. Now, as questions swirl around a hidden truth connected to William's early life, the late Queen's silence feels less like neutrality and more like strategy. Those close to the Queen say she saw everything, every file, every medical record, every sealed letter is between family members. If a private document from Charles existed, one carrying implications about William's origins, it almost certainly passed across her desk. She would have known, and yet nothing was ever said publicly. No correction, no denial, just a wall of polished calm. Some within the royal household now believe she didn't ignore the matter. She managed it, quietly, carefully, behind closed doors. One former courtier noted, "She never reacted. She planned. Could her sudden push to bring the family together in her final year have been more than emotional closure?" In 2022, during her last in-person meeting with William at Windsor, observers described the moment as tender, filled with unspoken emotion. But in hindsight, some now wonder, was that meeting her way of passing the weight of the truth to the one man who would inherit both the crown and its shadows? If she knew and kept it hidden, then William wasn't just inheriting the throne. He was inheriting a secret bigger than the crown itself, a truth tied not to scandal, but to identity. For a royal family built on bloodlines, heritage, and public perception, that single truth may be the thread that unravels everything William was raised to protect. And what if William didn't just inherit the crown, but a secret that could destroy everything it stands for? Stay with us. The lineage question that could haunt William forever. For Prince William, everything has always pointed to one path: the throne.
The Prince and Princess of Wales have unique sleeping arrangements at Kensington Palace, and not
From his earliest steps at Kensington Palace to his solemn presence at Queen Elizabeth II's funeral in 2022, he has carried the weight of duty with silent precision. But beneath the surface of tradition, portraits, and protocol, a deeper question is beginning to surface, one that could shake the very bloodline William was born to represent. What happens if the truth behind William's birth isn't what the public was told? In the British monarchy, lineage isn't symbolic, it's law. Every royal role, every title, every line in the order of succession is based on proven ancestry. And if questions are now circling not around his brother Harry, but around William himself, the impact is staggering. William isn't just a senior royal, he is the direct heir. If the details of his biological origin are brought into question, it doesn't simply affect him. It could alter the foundation of the entire royal structure. Legal minds are already considering the implications. One constitutional expert noted, "The crown is not a personality, it is an institution built on bloodlines. If that chain is broken, even by suspicion, it opens the monarchy to challenges we've never seen." Suddenly, past decisions appear less like protocol and more like preparation. Why, for example, was there such precision around William's public appearances in recent years? Why were so many personal details kept tightly controlled, even when public pressure mounted for transparency during the Queen's final months? Now, with whispers of sealed documents, quietly reassigned titles, and a final letter reportedly written by Charles before the Queen's death, some insiders believe a new motive is becoming clearer. Not anger, but containment. Quiet measures meant to shield the crown from an identity crisis it couldn't survive. And what of William's silence? He continues to perform, stoic, composed, and unshaken in public. But those who know him say the pressure is mounting. If he knew, even in part, and stayed silent, was that loyalty to the crown, or a betrayal of the people who trusted him to lead it with truth? So what do you think? Did Prince William stay silent to protect the monarchy or hide a deeper secret? We'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe.